Before I get into this video, I quickly wanted to say that by the time you're watching this video, I will have reached 1,000 subscribers. I'm so honored that 1,000 people actually thought my channel was interesting enough to subscribe to, since it seems to be a commonplace in the booktube community that when you reach 1,000 subscribers, you do a Q&A. So I will be doing a Q&A. I'm not sure if it's going to be next video that goes up or the next couple videos that go up. We'll see. So if you have any questions for me, it can be non-bookish related, it can be bookish related. You can ask me some of my favorite books, you can ask me some of my other hobbies, you can ask me anything. But if you'd like to leave a question, I will be doing a Q&A in the near future. On to the video. Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome back to my channel. So it is going in September, and with that time of year, I feel very much in the fall mood. And because of that, I want to read the books that make me feel those vibes. So I made a video like this last year, possibly 2 years ago, I think it was last year, where I counted down just some of my favorite fall type feeling books, but I broke it down into a couple per genre. So I had a couple classics, I had a couple cozy mysteries, I had a couple modern horror, things like that. But today I want to focus completely on my recommendations for fall classics to read that really get me in the mood for Halloween, and as well as just dying trees and death and our future demise. This video is starting off great. So a couple of these I would say are recent classics, so they were published in the 80s, but all the rest are much older. So let's get into the list. So the first two, like I said, are recently published, relatively recently for being a classic, I guess. The first one is Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. If you are a big fan of thrillers as well as psychological horrors, this book is for you. It definitely dabbles into the horror genre, even though it is straight up a thriller. So it tells the story of Clarice Sterling, who is an FBI trainee who is helping with an investigation to find this serial killer who is on the loose that is murdering women horrifically, and his nickname is Buffalo Bill. And in order to kind of understand his mentality better, she meets with brilliant psychologist and also Hannibal Lecter, one of the greatest villain anti-heroes in all of literature. He's a fascinating character, and in the movie, which I also highly recommend, he is played by Anthony Hopkins, who brings him to life absolutely perfectly. But in order to understand Buffalo Bill, Clarice meets with Hannibal Lecter and comes to understand his twisted mind more, and they very much have intellectual battles. This is a great book if you're looking for a perfect combination between like a horror and a mystery thriller. The next one is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. This was published in the 1980s, I believe, and it follows these two monks who come to this monastery in the 14th century and are called there to solve these mysterious murders and deaths that are happening at this monastery. It has that very much dark academia-esque feel, but it also has very much a feel of death and grim ideas of the future, and it has a lot of historical detail, and it also has a lot of debates into philosophy and theology. It is a fascinating book, an absolute masterpiece, and I think it's perfect for fall. The next one, and I had to include at least one Agatha Christie on this list, and I picked And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a standalone, so you don't have to have read any of her other books to read this. It follows a group of strangers that find themselves on this mysterious island only to have their numbers slowly murdered, and we unfold this convoluted plot as the story goes on. It's a very interesting mystery and a very dark ending. It is perfect for the creepy vibes, but it's also quite cozy. So for people who don't deal with very graphic horror well, like me, it's perfect. Let's get into a few Gothic novels from the 19th century, which are usually the novels I turn to when I'm in the fall vibe moods. So the first one is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is an exceptional book. It follows Jane Eyre, of course, who has a very rough upbringing but goes to live with this mysterious man as the nanny to his ward, Mr. Rochester, and there are mysterious things going on at his house. So it is an exceptional book. It is very dark and gothic and classic gothic horror. It has those like perfect creepy vibes while also not really being scary at all. Another great one to read in fall is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, because, you know, Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, they're sisters. So Wuthering Heights follows the doomed romance and later madness of Heathcliff and Catherine, and all the madness and horror that ensues because of how insane they both are. It's a fascinating book, not a romance as a lot of people categorize it as, very much a gothic horror and very dark psychological warning of don't be consumed by your selfishness, because it will bring everyone around you as well as yourself to misery. So this is a great book, a very gothic feeling read. It's set on the dark moors of England, and it has a very creepy feel throughout the book. The next one is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Of course, I have to include this on the list. Well, it's not exactly quintessential fall read. I personally think it's a great fall read. It's about changing times. It's about a murderer who murders these two women and become kind of consumed partially because of guilt, because of his actions. It's a fascinating psychological examination of this character as well as Russia during the 19th century, but it also has those very creepy vibes and themes of change and misery, darkness, death. Perfect for fall. And the next one is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. For those who have seen the musical, which is also very good, don't get me wrong, this book is not that much like it. Yes, it follows kind of the same plot, but it's very much a detective mystery novel. It follows this young man who's a detective who decides to go in and solve the case of the Phantom of the Opera in this Paris opera house. And in doing so, he meets Christina Daae, who is this young soprano singer who has caught the attention of the Phantom of the Opera, and much madness ensues. It's a fascinating book and very creepy vibes. Perfect for fall. I love this book so much, and I need to reread it. No fall classic list would be perfect without including this book, and that is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Yes, this is like the quintessential classic horror novel. You have Dracula, the vampire. You have all these different characters like Van Helsing and Mina and Harker, all of which have made such an impact on society, and so many people know their name who enjoy horror. It's such a good read. It's a book that gives you those creepy vibes while also having this classic, sophisticated society in it. It's great. I highly recommend it. Next one, which I would argue isn't a horror, but I still get strong fall vibes from it, is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This follows this genius professor who decides to reanimate a body and create a monster. Throughout the book, he is merely called Frankenstein's monster. And it is a fascinating psychological read. It is a book which examines man's own arrogance in believing that they control fate and destiny and they can create whatever they want and science shouldn't have limits. Fascinating book. It has those creepy vibes. Then we have two collections of short stories, which I will be recommending. The first one is H.P. Lovecraft, the complete collection. Of course, H.P. Lovecraft, the king of the occult and horror and Cthulhu and horrible legends and stories. Lots of madness in this book. I know that a lot of modern readers are critical of him for some of his opinions, and while I don't necessarily agree with all his opinions, I think he is a brilliant writer and so creepy in his books, and a great author to pick up during this spooky fall season where you're just in the mood for something horror. Also, his stories are incredibly short, so if you want to just pick up something that will only take you like a half hour or an hour to read, his are good. So is this author's, and that is Edgar Allan Poe. The king of Victorian horror, of course. This collection has a bunch of his short stories and poems. So many are great. The Telltale Heart, The House of Usher, The Raven is one of my favorite poems of all times, and I even memorized the first 2 stanzas. In fact, the first video, which I don't think is up anymore, the first video I put on my YouTube channel was me reading out The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe because I just loved it so much. And similar to H.P. Lovecraft, it's easy to just pick up one of his stories. It takes a half hour to an hour and then you're done. So a great storyteller, truly creepy, and perfect for fall. So did I miss anything on this list? Would you include other classics that you're like, no, this is the quintessential fall novel to read? Fall classic to read? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!